Not to let it out. Now just push it in. All the way.
Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today we're going to talk to you about the Sig Sauer P226. This happens to be the MK25, which is the Navy edition. It adds a few other features we'll talk about as we go through the gun. This one is in 9mm. It's also available in 40 and 357 Sig. It's a decent size gun. It's similar along the lines of like a Beretta 92, and it is a service pistol. It's actually the official service pistol of the Navy SEALs. It's 7 3/4 inches from the back of the beaver tail up to the front of the barrel, the end of the slide. But it's 8.5 inches when you bring it all the way out to the end of the threaded barrel. It's 5.5 inches tall, and it's 1.5 inches wide. So what we'll do is first we'll start off by showing you that this gun is clear. Now a few of the characteristics of this: it is a hammer-fired gun, as you can see. And it comes with the Sig Light night sights, which even during the day, these are very easy to pick up and see. They're very, very distinct and clear, visible sights. This gun does have a decocker, which is on the side, which one of the characteristics of this that's different from some other decockers: when the gun is cocked and you pull down on the decocker, when you hit the bottom, it releases it, and then as you release it back up, the hammer follows it back. Unlike some of the others where when you hit the decocker it just kind of slams the hammer forward, this brings the hammer down softly. In any event, even if your thumb were to slip off it and it were to snap closed, there is a hammer block, and the hammer is coming to almost a half-cock position, so it's a very safe decocker. It has a slide release on just the one side, and because it has a frame-mounted decocker, it doesn't have an external thumb safety. You can actually load the gun and then decock it, and it's ready to go, but it is now in a safe condition. It does have a Picatinny rail, and you've probably noticed already the anchor. This is the MK25, the Navy edition, so it's got corrosion-resistant internals. It's meant to function properly in water, and the threaded barrel is set up to accept any kind of muzzle device. You know, of course, a suppressor is the one that's coming to mind. And one of the things that's a little bit unique about this one is the threading is opposite. You turn the thread counterclockwise to loosen it and clockwise to tighten it. So that would be important that you, when you're choosing a suppressor for this, the barrel adapter, make sure that it's set up for that type of thread, or you might have a little difficulty getting it to install. Given that this is in what you would consider the full-size, service pistol territory, I'll show you a couple of the other pistols that would be in that same size category that you might be looking at. Of course, we're still clear here. Set this down. You might be looking at something like this Beretta. And this is a 40 cal, but the physical dimensions of this are the same in the 9mm. You'll see that the Beretta is longer when you go beaver tail to the front, even considering the threaded barrel. You might look at something like this Walther PPQ. Just let these set down. They're not going to stand up. They don't have the squared off top like some of the Glocks do. You might be looking at something like this Walther PPQ. Now this is a striker fired weapon as opposed to these two being hammer fired. And you'll notice it is significantly shorter than any of them. And you might also look at something like this Glock 17, which is also a striker fired gun, which is a little bit longer than the PPQ. So when you line these all up, you'll see that the Beretta is by far the longest. The Sig would come in right behind it, and if you didn't have the threaded barrel option, it would be even a little bit shorter. And then you'd have the PPQ and the Glock. From a capacity standpoint, the Beretta holds 12. Now this is the 40 cal. I do believe that the 9mm may hold 14 or 15. I'd have to double check that. This one holds 13. The PPQ holds 15. and the Glock holds 17. Now when we look at their grips, you'll see that the grip sizes are very similar, the Glock being the thinnest, the PPQ coming right in behind it, and then of course the two hammer-fired guns, which are more along the service pistol territory, a little bit thicker. And they have roughly equivalent grip heights, within a half inch of each other, the grip heights. Taking this down is relatively simple. Show that it's clear. Make sure there's no magazine. Lock the slide back. Pull the takedown lever all the way down, rotate it down. The slide's now under spring tension, so you want to make sure you have a hold of it. Release it, pull it forward and off. Now this is an alloy frame. There are guides at the back, fairly substantial guides at the back, and long guides along the front. So this is a well-supported slide, both sides. Removing the barrel is actually very easy. It's almost the same as a lot of the striker fired in polymer pistols. This one happens to be an alloy frame. You pull up on the spring. Now it's not a captive spring, so you want to make sure you have a hold of it. And you can slide it off the steel guide rod. It's a hollow steel guide rod. You can see down into it. Now one of the things on this spring, they've got one end painted red. That's the end that would go towards the chamber. The other end would go up into the front of the slide. But when I look at this spring, I can't see any difference between one end and the other. They appear to be absolutely identical. There may be some characteristics in how the spring is tensioned at one end versus the other that makes them say that this end has to go towards the barrel. So as you're cleaning it repeatedly and this paint starts to wear off, it may be a good idea when the paint starts to fade to touch it back up so that you can be clearly obvious which end is the right end. Because just looking at it, there's nothing on this spring that would tell me that is the end towards the barrel other than the paint. Pick the barrel up. I did make one common mistake when you've got threaded barrel. You have to remove the barrel protector. And it's tempting, to take the barrel protector off and not bother with it, but you want to have that barrel protector. You want to protect these threads. So when you're firing the gun, you do have to periodically, between magazines when it's in an unloaded state, reach up and make sure that that's tight. And remember, it will get hot, so you may want to do it with either a glove or a cloth. Because if it loosens up and you fire the barrel protector off the end of the barrel, then it's gone. There's a little bit of a look of the barrel. And the slide. Of course, the slide is much simpler on this when you don't have all of the firing mechanism in here. It does have the firing pin block right here. It would be like an 80 series 1911, so it is safe. Reassembly is relatively simple. Slide the barrel back in. Make sure you've got the spring with the paint towards the back of the guide rod. Slide the spring in. Push it forward. And one thing you're going to notice on this spring compared to a lot of the others, there's very little tension on the spring. You're almost thinking you're going to have to give it a good shove like with the Glock and several of the others, and it just kind of slides right in there. You've got a heavy barrel, or a heavy slide. That heavy slide mitigates the need for a heavy spring. Putting it back on the frame. Take the frame, line the guides up. And remember, you're starting all the way at the front on this frame because it's got guides all the way. Slide it back, and then lock the slide back. Flip the release up, and there you go. And decock. The other thing to make sure you don't forget to put the barrel protector back on. It's an easy thing to forget, but not something you want to lose. And one thing that's important, tighten this up good and firm with your hands. Don't go after it with a pliers or wrench or anything like that to keep it from loosening when you fire it. When it heat cycles, it's going to loosen, so that's just part of what it is, but you don't want to beat this up and over tighten it. This is not a really heavy duty nut like you'd have on a bolt. It's just a thin covering. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you the trigger. Because this isn't my gun, it was loaned to us by a local viewer, I don't want to dry fire somebody else's gun. So I have a magazine loaded with snap caps. These are all snap caps. They're inert dummy bullets. But that'll allow me to protect the firing mechanism as opposed to firing it dry. When it's in a fully cocked position, it has a very nice trigger. There's quite a bit of take-up, which is very consistent with a lot of these DASA type service pistols. But once you're off the take-up, there's a very crisp break. Short reset. And crisp break. Now, if it's been fired and it's all the way out, the reset is of course all the way out, but now it's double action, and I can fire it. So it has double strike capability. And one thing I will note, the owner of this gun installed the SRT trigger, the short reset trigger. So that has definitely would have shortened up the reset and brought that nice crisp reset, which if I cock the hammer, you take that take up, to cycle it, and you can't just pull the hammer. Short reset and click. Very, very nice trigger, and with the decocker and the ability to carry it in the decocked and safe position and the double action, single action nature of it, at any point you pull this gun and you go to use it, regardless of the cocked state, it's ready to fire. It's just a little bit longer trigger. With the size of the gun, nice 3-finger grip, good solid feeling gun. At the range, this is a pleasure to shoot. It's extremely easy to keep on target. It's extremely easy to get good follow-up shots. The barrel flip is minimal. It's a pleasure to shoot at the range. It would be an excellent candidate for home defense. Range, obviously, it's a wonderful range gun, and it even has collector value, being the Navy edition and the a service pistol. So overall, a very nice package. It's been a pleasure to have this gun for a few days, to enjoy it and review it and talk to you guys about it. Please stay tuned for some more range footage at the end. If you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and have a great day.